China? China.
China?
That's China.
Before 1949, there used to be 5 time zones in China. So, why did the country switch to only one time zone? Isn't this a weird thing for a country as large to have a single time zone? But, before jumping in, let's have a little context. Between 1912 and 1949, several plans with multiple time zones were adopted, including the 5 standard time zones that had been proposed by the Central Observatory of the Republic of China 100 years ago. So, they did have time zones as you have fingers on one hand, unless you're a ninja turtle.
But do you think they had pizza back then?
In the 1930s, the proposed 5 time zones had not been fully observed, causing regions in the inner China area to adopt their own time standards, resulting in chaos. Following the end of World War II, the 5 time zone system was resumed. Implementation was patchy for much of this period, mainly because there wasn't a unified government. By then, there was also this spot of unpleasantness with the Japanese.
But again, Japanese power was too great, and after a battle lasting but a few days, the city fell to the invaders.
Followed by a dispute between Chiang Kai-shek, who was the leader of the Republic of China, and Mao Zedong about who should be running the country. Simply said, a few other things were going on, and assigning the time zones was not their highest priority. In 1949, as this Chinese Civil War came to an end, and regional governments came under the influence of the Chinese Communist Party, the People's Republic of China was established, and the whole country switched to using the same time as Beijing, which is UTC+8, which is later known as China Standard Time. On various occasions, regions of Xinjiang or Tibet were using de facto UTC+6 time, mainly for work hours, stores or offices. In 1997 and 1999, Hong Kong and Macau were transferred to China from the United Kingdom and Portugal respectively, being established as special administrative regions of China. Although the sovereignty belongs to China, they say they retain their own policies regarding time zones for historical reasons. Well, due to their geographical locations, both Hong Kong and Macau are within the UTC+8 time zone, the same as the new China's national standard. And most likely, this was just a fortunate coincidence for these two regions. So, why did they stick with only one time zone? Is it better or not? Here, we can take a look over a map of China with the time zones that were implemented in 1947. Geographically, the country spans over 5 time zones. Looking closer at the edges, most of China's territory lies mainly in 3 time zones, +6, +7 and +8. Some fractions of the land. When saying fraction of land, these fractions have similar territorial coverage like countries as France, but still a fraction in this case, are only covering a fraction of the extreme time zones, and yes, they could be merged with the neighboring time zone. So, in terms of this criteria, China could go with 3 time zones. But there is something else. Here is a map of China with the population density. Reason number 1 is the population distribution of China. In terms of population and not territory, around 95% of China's population lies in +7 and +8 time zones. Based only on these criteria, they could easily shrink it to only 2 time zones. If they wanted to have only 1 time zone, why didn't they take the +7 time zone instead of the +8? It makes more sense because it is more central, and this means the western areas don't have to wait so long for the sun to rise. The +8 time zone was picked based on the capital position. Beijing's position is too easterly, plus Beijing needed more legitimacy as the new capital again, because after the end of World War II, Nanjing served as the capital of the Republic of China until 1949, when the Communists took over and the People's Republic of China was proclaimed, and Nanjing was once again abandoned in favor of Beijing as the new national capital. One of their most important missions was to create a sense of unification and centrality, and this involved a series of administrative policies upon founding the People's Republic of China. A unified time zone would be one of them. This would mean that all workers would go to work on the same schedule, the national radio could report time to the whole country altogether, and newspapers would no longer differentiate the 5 different time zones. The switch to Beijing time is mainly because of the radio. The national radio only gave UTC+8 time, so Beijing time became very accurate for most of the country. That's why they even call it Beijing time. Okay, but does it function well? Is it better? Some regard China's single time zone decision as silly, probably because they assume that people living in Western provinces have to get up at 6 AM when it is still dark, because people on the east side get up at 6 AM too. In the United States, for example, people do have the same schedule, but they have different time zones. In China, while people are having one same time zone, they have different schedules. On another hand, if you are living in Shanghai, and let's say you have an online meeting with someone in Chengdu, or you are working on a commercial flight, or as a train engineer, especially for those fast trains that traverse across a province in an hour or so, you will appreciate one time zone. Your 8 AM is also their 8 AM. No confusions. And there is no math involved. Plus, you don't have to think about whether people are at work or not. Let's say you are in Shanghai and you have to start that teleconference with your colleagues in Chengdu. They will need to get up earlier in terms of biological time. Your 8 AM is also their 8 AM, but your sunrise is not their sunrise. In the US, say you want to start a teleconference and you wanted it to be at 8 AM Central Time, which is 6 AM Pacific Time, so your colleague in Los Angeles probably needs to get up earlier. So he does get up earlier, and he also does the math. China decided that one time zone would work well, since the country works basically 24/7. It might be a bit weird, like at the easternmost tip in Fuyuan County, which is the first place in China to see the sun in the morning as early as 6:37 AM and sets at 3:52 PM, while the sunrise in the city of Kashgar in western China officially occurs as late as 10:17 AM. But eventually, you get used to it. There are though other countries that cross different time zones and use only one. The best examples are India and Brazil. Different countries use different time zone schedules for different reasons. It is not always because of political reasons. Is one way superior to the other? I don't know. What do you think? I'm curious to see your thoughts on this.